I made a video just the other day talking about how the American dream concept has just changed, and this video is somewhat similar in the sense that we're talking about a similar matter. A lot of the videos that I've made recently have been about the cost of living crisis. They do quite well. The moral of the story, the too long didn't read, is simply this. In places like the UK, rents, mortgages, costs are quite high, incomes and wages are generally quite low. And that's not good. But everything in the world has changed in the last 50 years, at least the last 30 years. You know, go back 30 years, the year was 1994. How much more basic did a computer look? How smartphones were not a thing for a good, 15 years after that, roughly. So, you know, the technological times has changed society, and a lot of people are going to say that they've embraced it fully, but they have not. They haven't embraced the changes in the world, because what do most people do with their life to earn a living, to get by? They follow a path that doesn't work. They go down a 9 to 5 where they know in college or university, I know graduates my age who know they're getting a graduate job that pays less than McDonald's does full time. But they're doing it because they know that they think they're going to get career progression. What I've seen happen to a lot of people, friends of mine and colleagues, etc., who have been 20, let's say 5, they get a couple of years at the company. A lot of the time the company drops them because the companies have acknowledged that the times have changed. Your average person has not. Your average person has not acknowledged society's changes, and society's changes are simple, right? Houses are not necessarily affordable in the same way, and people might say you can buy a house for 60 grand. You can, but it's going to be crap, right? It's not. It's going to be either near non-inhabitable, and it's going to need an extra 30 to 50 spending on it, or it's going to be in an area of town where, trust me, they're selling it for 60 grand for a reason. People say that's not realistic. I've lived in these places. It is true, right? Cheap property is always cheap for a reason. Anyway, back on point. People are trying to buy houses, people are trying to get long-term careers, and people are trying to finance cars. But look at today's market, right? Not many people at all spend their entire lifetime in one job, one career, even one industry these days. People are switching left, right and centre, and fair enough, different opportunities. A lot of companies are outsourcing workers abroad to countries with lower pay or better business investment rates. That's another thing to consider. A lot of society has changed as well. You know, the smartphone has got people living in a completely different way. The world around dating and relationships has absolutely changed. Less and less people are getting married, less and less people are staying together for life, less and less people are having kids. So with that being the backdrop for everything that we're trying to do is arguably doesn't have the same purpose and point that it did in the 50s or 70s. Because, you know, let's say the concept of me buying a house, 21-year-old me buying a house. Why? Why would I even do that? People say it's for a place to live, it's for security. Well, in today's market, no, it's not. I could get dropped from my job and be broke. My business could fail and be broke, right? That's why I'm trying to have savings. That's why I don't mind cutting my living costs in any ways possible. Again, a lot of these people do not have relationships, so why are they trying to move into a family house? A 4-bedroom house is basically only it only has a point if you're going to be moving in your wife with the intention of having kids. Otherwise, why do I as a single man want to aspire to a 4-bedroom house when I've got no one to live in it? Big car, for what, right? And what's my point here? Everything has changed, but the way that we do things are not. Because most people don't think like I've just thought there. And I'm not saying that I'm some sort of a better person or anything. I'm absolutely not. I'm just acknowledging something that a lot of people don't seem to. The truth of the matter is, it's not beneficial for me to try and get a 4-bedroom house. It's going to tie me down to one location, put me in an awful amount of debt, and probably not garner the results that I necessarily need at this stage of life. I would say at this stage of life, location, mobility and flexibility is a huge thing. You need to go where the money is, or be able to go where the money is, and benefit from that. Again, careers. People complain about careers and jobs, but they don't acknowledge that the job market has changed. Why are you trying to work in the same company for 20, 30 years? I've known people, and bear in mind, you know, I have got friends that are older than me by, let's say, up to about 5 years, or even a bit more. I have known people who literally, their whole thing is just company hopping, right? They just company hop. So let's say they work at company A, for a certain amount, then they go to company B because they're offering them more. Next year they go back to company A, then they go to company C, then they go back and back and back. That's how people get pay rises these days. Again, rents are so high, people can't afford mortgages anymore, but they don't necessarily need them. Car finance should almost be out of the question if you're not stupid. And I'm not saying that to be rude or mean, but look, I bought a car last couple of months ago for £2,000, right? All in all, repairs, etc. The car and its repairs, because it did need a bit of work, was £2,000. It's never broken down once. And again, touch wood, that's going to continue to be the case. But even if it did, it's cheap to repair. I don't need to be spending £200, £300, £400 a month on finance payments. I could easily put that £200, £300, £400 to repairs of the car. Not that it would cost £200 to £400 a month, but let's say it did, right? I've still not got a deposit straight down of £5 grand, £10 grand, so I'm doing better off. I don't need it because I'm thinking for myself. I'm actually thinking about what I'm doing. It makes more sense to live in a house. Oh, just drop the mic. It makes more sense to live in a house share or with parents and save that cash if you've not got a serious relationship than to get a 4-bedroom mortgage for the next 25 years. It makes more sense to have a think about doing online work, building a business online, or I don't know, a lot of people do company hopping, a lot of people do multiple online jobs at the same time. It makes more sense to think about that, at least think about it, than just get into a 9-to-5 and be comfortable. Because here's the thing that a lot of people are not thinking. This is another big problem, I think. Not enough people think actually long term. And what do I mean by that? People will happily moan about the fact that they can barely afford to get by in 2024, right? Now, obviously, rates and rents, etc., could drop substantially, but look at the housing market prices since the 50s, since the 80s. They're going one way, right? Look at wages. They're going one way comparative to inflation. Look at car finance payments. Look at the cost of raising children. Look at tuition fees and loans. Look at interest rates on banks and mortgages and credit cards. Everything's going one way. So if you're already squeezed in 2024 on your wage, what's 2035 going to look like? Not 2025. What's 2035 going to look like? Are you going to have any money to survive on? What's 2050 look like? I'm 21. Now I'll put myself on the spot to actually crunch the numbers, but if I have to retire at 75, let's say, the year will be 2074? No, about 2077, I think, or 2076, something like that. I might be wrong, so it was just quick off the top maths. 2076. What is the house? Let's just say, for example, you want to live in the UK and US, you've got no intention of moving. Fair enough, that's fair. No hate to that at all. But do you think that things may or may not be worse in 2070? If you're younger than me, 2080? If you're older than me, 2040, 50, 30? Are things looking good, better or worse? Right? And everyone's here to think about the quick short-term pleasure, the quick short-term status that they get. But they're not thinking long-term. Here's the thing. I'm acutely aware of the fact that as a business owner, and especially as a young person, you're judged heavily, because as a 21-year-old, I could have a career. I could be working 40, 60 hours a week, let's say. I could be driving a financed Audi that I'm paying off for the next 10 years, but at least I look good. Everyone's focused on being in the now. Everyone's focused on the short-term benefits, and realistically, these are the things that are making you poorer, they're making you worse off. I don't need a financed Audi. I don't actually want one. I don't need a BMW. I don't need a 4-bedroom house in a posh part of town. What I need is location flexibility, as I have just said. What that means for me is, if the cost of living is that high in the UK, I could potentially go either somewhere like America or Dubai, where the cost of living is higher, but you get paid more, or you get paid appropriately, or I could go somewhere like Thailand, the Philippines, some parts of Eastern Europe, where I can make the money online that I make now and be well off. I need savings for my future to be able to do this in the worst case, or even in the best case. If I had 20, 30 grand, I could set myself up in basically any country in the world and not have to get a job for a couple of months or whatever. I need an online income so I can have that location flexibility. And I've said this before, people are fighting an end game that's not going to work. If you're looking to working longer hours. There's a physical limit to that. You can't really long-term work more than 60, 80 hours a week, realistically, for a lot of people, for most people. So realistically, unless the end game is working 60 plus hours into your 50s or 60s or 70s, you need to be thinking now. Like, seriously. You need to be acknowledging the changes in the world now. Now. Because again, people are already struggling. Add 20% to most people's cost of living crisis and they are screwed, like, fully. So it's bad enough as it is. People will be done unless they start working longer hours. And this is the importance, and actually no, word change, objection, this is the necessity in thinking about all of these things. Like, your average person, I think, should be thinking at least about bringing in an extra couple of £100 a year or a month online. At least be thinking about that. At least be giving it a strong level of consideration, if not attempt, to make up for the shortfall in bills. They should be thinking about getting location flexibility. They should be thinking about utilising the modern day's opportunities. And just to sort of bring this all together, I spoke at the beginning about the changes that we've seen since the early days, the 50s or so, or even the 80s, even the 90s. That's great. No one's acknowledged it though, because we all use this technology and we all use these systems, but we don't use them for our own actual betterment. We spend our time watching TikTok and YouTube, and by the way, a lot of the stuff on there is actually really meaningful. All of my stuff I don't use TikTok at all, but all my stuff on YouTube, money, finance, gym, cars. I'm trying to build up this sort of knowledge. But again, people are using these resources for the wrong tools. They're not using their computers to build money, they're using it to, I don't even know. They're complaining about companies whilst they're not utilising the new incentives to work online and save commuter costs or work in a cheaper part of the world. They're not utilising the opportunity to work online and stock multiple jobs. They're not utilising the opportunities to make money from the computer and spend more time with their loved ones and live in the modern way. You see, this is the thing, right? It's not my opinion, this is a fact. Look at the people who can't afford to pay their bills. Look at the people whose pay is actually going down. It's not an opinion. It's a fact, right? The companies are adapting quickly, right? Look at when you go to a supermarket. I was going to mention a company name. There's actually no point because they're all like it. There might be like 2 old women doing the tills, and then there's 50 of those machines. You all know what machines I'm talking about. Those them scan machines that you do yourself. That wasn't the case 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So the companies are rapidly catching up. They are cutting costs anywhere they can. And that's capitalism, that's ruthless capitalism, that's what they're going to do. But that's why you need to be on your game, because we're not in the 50s anymore. We're not in the 80s. We're not in a market where job security is going to be a thing, then you're going to get a 4-bedroom house and a wife and kids, and the world's changed. But not necessarily you, but most people watching this video haven't acknowledged it to a degree where they're changing their lives appropriately enough to benefit from the new opportunities. All they're doing is just position themselves in a position where they can get wrecked. They're going to get wrecked because they're looking to opportunities of their parents and grandparents in a market where that simply doesn't work. We've got kids making millions online from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Look at today's economy, right? I'm not saying this is where it's at, but I'm saying this is at least something to focus on. The markets have changed, the worlds have changed, the world has changed, and you can keep up or you can be left behind, and that's just a simple truth.